Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. Yeah, you know what it is. Hard worker, scrappy, unfiltered, and sometimes unhinged football content. Hard to explain, but you know it when you see it. Doing it daily our way. I don't know what you're talking about right now. Redraft and Dynasty Fantasy Football, we got you covered. You know their defense is ranked like 31st in the NFL? NFL draft prospects and rookies? Now you know you in the right place for that.
Absolutely.
All right, then stop saying it. Then we're done. And prop bets with my man JRich.
Count that money, man.
Now wipe the crust out of your eyes, get you a cup of coffee. It's time to wake your ass up with Ray G. You honestly are making absolutely no sense and you sound silly as hell. GMGP. It is Monday, June 24th, 2024. Y'all decided to wake y'all asses up with Ray G, whether you're on the East Coast, the West Coast, or down in the dirty South. I appreciate y'all being in the damn building. If you're here for the first time, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, like the content, subscribe to the channel, check out all the dope content that hits this feed, the podcast feed, Destination Dynasty, Scott Connor on there this morning, Ty DeClaire doing stuff with the trade show. Shane is the worst, my dog Shane Manila on the channel giving you fantasy content as well. And for everybody tapping in for the first time live, I see some people saying they never make it to the live shows, but you're in the building. What's going on? Buck fan, JKE, GMGP. To you, what's going down, big fella? Who else we got in the building this morning? I see you in there, Rob Williams. What's happening with you? Good morning, my good people. What's going on? Dominic, Jordan, Craig in the building. Anthony West, West Coast Chiefer. What's happening with you? We got fantasy questions in the chat. Help him out. Wake up chat. It's early in the morning. He wants to know in the 12x10 Superflex PPR, no tight end premium, Deebo Samuel or Xavier Legette and Adnan Mitchell. So there you go. Some trade questions this morning. Got a lot to talk about. We got the U.S. Olympics. The Celtics won the NBA championship. JRich is telling me about some soccer hockey match game that's supposed to be real big tonight. We got NFL news. We've got a lot. Appreciate y'all being in the damn building. JRich, how you doing this morning, big fella?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We have Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals. The first time we got hockey on the show, I think, all year. So credit to us. It only took the biggest game of the year for us to actually talk about it a little bit. But I'm very excited. I will be watching. I'll be tuning in. It is good versus evil. Canada versus the U.S. The greatest player, maybe, Ray, in hockey history versus some guy named Matthew Tkachuk. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. I'm excited for it. But this is an NFL show after all. You can see the thing. Promo code ALLGAS at Underdog Fantasy. If you want a deposit match, up to $250 on your first deposit. And
use that. Get that money.
Pick. Yeah, free money and special picks. So I'm excited, man. It's a good day in sports. It was a great weekend across the board. You mentioned the Olympics with Richardson qualifying for the U.S. national team. We'll talk about some Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark round 2, of course.
Yeah.
So lots going on. Copa America was flying last night, and of course the Euros are almost out of the group stage. So lots of great things going on in the sports world right now. But how are you, man?
Jay, and last night, man, for those that don't know or missed it, Scott Connor and I were live on the channel, little Destination Chill. We did an FFPC draft, a little different, super flex, tight end premium. So make sure you go back, check that out. Scott and I, FFPC draft, live on the channel last night. Go back and check that out. It was about almost damn near 2 hours we were on there for going through that draft. 20 rounds, talking through the picks. But you did mention earlier in the show, man, some pride for the home team, the Americans, man. Noah Lyles blazing out there, 9.83 in the 100-meter dash. He and both Sha'Carri Richardson put on a freaking show. Jay, I don't know if you pay attention to a lot of track and field, man, but it's probably outside of football, probably my favorite sport to watch. Enjoy it tremendously. Ran a little bit in college, learned very quickly that football speed and track speed were two completely different things, but really excited for this Olympics this year in 24. It's like a whole new era and wave of athletes in the Olympic Games. So I don't know how much of that you pay attention to or if you'll be rooting for your home team, your Canadian squad, your country. But I'm pretty excited about the Olympics this summer. It's going to be a damn good one, man. But shout out to Noah Lyles, the whole U.S. team. All them cats ran 9.8. Sha'Carri Richardson, after the downfall and her smoking weed and them trying to cancel her, for her to come back and ball the hell out the way she is, good shit for her, man.
Yeah, I mean, Ray, do you think anyone has a shot to beat DeGrasse this year? I mean, he's got to kind of redeem himself after the last Olympics, but he came on strong before that, so I'm interested to see how he's looking. I haven't seen anything in trials. I don't follow it too closely.
Yes.
But do you think they got a shot to beat him this year? Because they've been all right. They've been all right.
Yes.
And is Lyles the main guy for you?
Noah's so strong, man. By the time he hits that 40, 50-meter mark, starts off a little slow, but he's so damn strong through the drive phase. So I think Noah's got a good shot, but who knows? In a single race like that, man, you just never know, but the excitement is high. And that's going to give us something to get us through the summertime as we lead into, as we get into the season and training camp and all that stuff, football actually taking place. I'm excited for it. But Jay, the Boston Celtics did win the NBA championship. So go ahead and talk about it. Boston beat the brakes off the Dallas Mavs. Beat the brakes off the Dallas Mavs, Jay. Talk about it. Jaylen Brown, Celtics 18th championship, most winningest franchise in NBA history. Celtics got it done, man. Homegrown. Jason Tatum, lame as hell in his postgame interviews, but it's all right. He got it done. Celtics are champs.
Yeah, Tatum's been a guy I've been a big fan of for a long time. I do think that Brown deserved the MVP. People will say Tatum's going to be one of the more disrespected MVPs in a long time. He probably should have won it, but I thought Brown deserved it. Honestly, he played great. He's one of the main reasons why they beat Indiana in 4. You look at that whole run, I think that Brown really did deserve it. But yeah, the Celtics, they were the best team. They were supposed to win. It actually happened that way. But the Mavs are still great. They still have a lot to figure out. It's, another sort of disappointment in some respects for them, but it's also very encouraging for what they've done and continue to build around Luka. But yeah, the Celtics deserved to win. They were the better team. I called them to win. I picked Jaylen Brown to win MVP. If you guys follow my betting over on Pinnacle. If you don't, you lost some money, but that's okay. But I'm excited, Ray. It was a good season in the NBA. I am glad it's over, though, and we can talk about some better sports. And you say nothing's happening. You just got to watch the Euros and Copa America, man. You'll be all right. Take you all the way to training camp, and you'll be flying once training camp comes.
There's a lot happening, dude. We had Civil War 2.0 happen yesterday. Yeah. Civil War 2.0. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, Jay. They got it in, and both of these women balled out. Angel Reese is on fire right now, Jay. Double-doubles, I think 8 straight games, WNBA rookie record. Caitlin Clark set the franchise record for assists in the game. Both of these women are good, man. Both these women are good. Chicago Sky beat the Fever 88-87. It was a really good game, 17 points, 13 assists for Clark. And like I said, Angel Reese, double-double in 8 straight games, WNBA rookie record, the first since the best player in the WNBA, A'ja Wilson, has done that with 25-plus points and 15-plus rebounds in a single game. She is incredible. So both Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark balling out. Hopefully, we start to see some less discourse around these two women. They're both incredible, and the viewership that the WNBA continues to gain. It was a fantastic game. 88-87, something to do on a Sunday. Shout out to those two ladies who are balling the hell out, man.
Yeah, man, good for Angel Reese to kind of get her revenge. And I think more importantly, she's been taking a lot of criticism from the media. So to kind of shut up those critics a little bit, talk her shit, play to the level that she needs to play to. If she's going to continue to be like this, but definitely deserving of that victory. She was phenomenal all game. And excited for her because she had been taking a little bit of heat coming her way over some of the comments she made, but she definitely backed it up on Sunday, beating Clark in the Fever.
And Jay, the last little news item I'm going to touch on, I'm going to let you have it, man. Talk about it. You said in the pre-show, greatest player of all time in this respective sport, but talk about what we got going down tonight. What we got going down tonight?
Ray, you got to check my volume. People keep saying it's low. So check that. Get me up a little bit.
All right.
But yeah, everyone's going to say Gretzky's the greatest player of all time, and that's fine. Like, I respect the opinion, but definitely McDavid's the best player I've ever watched in my entire life. He's disgusting. He's the fastest player ever. You can't really cover him with only one guy, and he's on the verge of coming back down 3-0 in the Cup final. He had back-to-back 4-point games. He's crazy. The best player in the NHL. It's not even close. And so, yeah, you could say that he's not the greatest player ever, and that's fine, but man, he is phenomenal. I'm so excited for this game. I'm so excited for him. He's one of those players, honestly, Ray, that like when players are great, like Dan Marino was great and he never won a Super Bowl. It's on that level, right? He's not quite, the greatest of all time, but he's one of those players that is so good, he deserves to win a Cup final. And so if he did it in this fashion, coming down 3-0, that would make it that much more spectacular and really cement him as one of the greatest players ever, because much like the NBA, if you don't have a championship, you can only get so high on these lists. But once you have that, no one can take anything away from you. But yeah, I am definitely in the camp that I think McDavid is probably not even close, the most talented player ever. And definitely when you just talk about greatness, yeah, it's Gretzky because of his numbers, but the talent that McDavid possesses is unlike anything we've ever seen in the NHL and may ever see for a very, very long time because he's truly that different on the ice.
Man, that's crazy, man. And because I don't know, I'm not as versed in hockey as you are or some of the people in the chat, but does one player make that big of a difference on the ice like it does? You know, without a quarterback, you're not winning in the NFL. Without a superstar guard, you're not winning in the NBA. Does what he do, what he brings to the table, the position he plays, his all-around game, is this something that all sports fans would enjoy watching tonight? Because you just say coming down from 3-0, that's you just don't see that in other sports, dog.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing with him, right, it's somewhere between the NFL and the NBA, right? So the NBA is probably the most impactful on an individual basis because, you know, LeBron can take a team to the finals basically by himself. And McDavid is essentially hockey's LeBron. Like, he really is. I've been hearing about McDavid since he was 12 years old. They changed the rules in the OHL so he could play at 15. Like, imagine that. Like, imagine they changed the rules so LeBron could play in a junior league, right? Like, that's what McDavid is. That's how talented he is. But, you know, he plays about a third of the game, right? So the game is 60 minutes. He plays about 22 to 23. So 2/3 of the time, he's not even on the ice, but he's on for the most impactful moments and will make a massive impact on the game.
Why is that?
So he definitely
is he old? Why is he only playing 20 damn minutes?
That's just how it is in hockey. You don't, defenders, I think on the max will play like 25, 26 if you're on the top line. But yeah, top line in hockey, shifts are 30 to 45 seconds now. They're really, really short. It's only if you're on for an extended period of time. But yeah, he'll probably play 24, 25 because it's game 7, but he's not going to play like 30 minutes of the game. That's why they have the other lines, the other shifts, and all those players kind of take some,
we'll
some
talk
pressure
about that
and give
later
them a break.
because I don't know. I would assume you would want him on the ice more than that, but there's clearly reasons why he's not out there. I'm not questioning.
It's just fatigue, right? Just fatigue. Yeah. Because the thing about hockey is they go hard for the whole shift, right? And then they come off. Versus the NBA, you have the ebbs and flows. You have moments where you can take a break. Like, they don't do that as much.
Okay.
They're just going full go for the moments they're on, and then they come off. So it's a different style.
Alex C said skating, ducking, it's exhausting, and it's constantly sprinting. Like, you're not out there just cruising around. Like, I'm thinking I'm just out there for a stroll on the ice, right, waiting for the damn puck to shoot it. But good. So that game tonight, game 7 tonight, down 3-0, and I'm sure you're rooting for Edmonton and not Florida, correct?
100%. 100%. Not even close.
Your Canadian blood won't allow you to root for that Florida,
it's not even that, man. It's just like I've watched McDavid for years, and it's just one of those. I just want to see him win. Like, I just want to see him win, and this is his best shot. And he's really struggled, and they've really struggled to build a team around him. So to have this team that's actually ready and has a shot to win, like, I really want to see them win.
All right, Jay. Well, let's pivot to some NFL news, man, because we did have some stuff break last week as we are in those dog days of summer, as we inch ever closer to training camp and getting some more actionable news. Your New England Patriots made a splash. A signing was done. They signed Rhamondre Stevenson, Jay, to a 4-year, $37 million deal, $17 million fully guaranteed for the Rhino Rhamondre, 7th highest paid running back in the NFL on an annual per year basis. Rhamondre signed. This is a player, Jay, that when we first started to do this wake-up show during the draft process, I was like, I'm not a fan of Rhamondre. This dude's 260. He's like a fullback coming out of Oklahoma. And then the Senior Bowl hits. He drops weight, goes to the NFL, starts to ball out early. And we did a quick pivot on all Stevenson. And I was this guy can play. Came on there, apologized. He's gotten signed, 7th highest paid running back in the league on an annual basis. How do you feel about this? How does this make you feel about New England, Rhamondre, his value, his outlook this year? I think you're probably going to get a lot of usage out of Rhamondre Stevenson, so I'm excited from that perspective. Am I any more interested in his long-term value? No, he's a running back. I am interested in what he can do for me today and right now. And in a backfield that consists of Kevin Harris and Antonio Gibson and a rookie quarterback or Jacoby Brissett, I feel very good about Rhamondre in 2024. Beyond that, we'll see how it works out. But I feel good about him. He didn't play he didn't play a full season last year. He got his money. He got paid. I'm feeling good about it. How do you feel? Your New England Patriots locked up Rhamondre.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a luxury signing for them ultimately. They're not paying a quarterback. They're not paying a ton of money to wide receivers, obviously. So, yeah, let's lock up our starting running back and get a lot of use out of him. RB17 right now on KTC, right? Barely younger than Josh Jacobs. And that's an interesting conversation. Would you rather have Josh Jacobs or Rhamondre Stevenson? Because you can make the case the Packers are a much better team. They're probably going to score more. Josh Jacobs has a solid projection based off what I've seen so far, and it looks decent, even though people are kind of not really pegging him to be the guy. I do like the situation in Green Bay. Obviously, the offense is great versus a Patriots team where the offense is very in flux. We don't know if they're going to be good or bad. We expect them to run the ball a lot. But I think, RB17 prices to get 2 years probably out of Rhamondre Stevenson, since he is guaranteed for $17 million.
Yep.
That's a pretty solid price tag. He's cheaper than Trey Benson, Rachaad White, Jacobs, Pacheco, Cook. Yeah, maybe more talented backs, but the volume should be there for him. I think the price tag is solid, and I think he's going to be good for the next 2 years. You say, year by year, but I mean, the Patriots offense isn't great, but he should at least see 250 touches a year for the next 2 seasons.
We've got Jimbo in the chat. He said, give me that big-ass 8 over Rhamondre. So he is in the Josh Jacobs. Listen, man, he's on a new team. The jersey's going to be smaller, fit appropriately this year.
There we go.
As long as it is not a triple X jersey, I'm good with Josh Jacobs. But Jimbo says give him Jacobs over Rhamondre. Let me see what some other people in the chat have said about this. Jeff, what does Jeff say? I hear you. That was me over a week ago. Oh, they're talking about, Rubio said, this is back to the skating, said, bro, I skated for the first time in 20 years. My body was sore as F for the next 7 days, man. I ain't about that sore body life. Jay, I mean, I think this is good for New England. It's good for Rhamondre. Gives him that security. Do I feel any better about him in Dynasty long term? Not really. If this provides the window, let me just ask you. Let me put fire to ass. Would you trade Rhamondre right now for a 25 first?
Yeah, if I don't need him. Yeah. I think he could be an RB2, so if you don't need an RB2, then yeah, for sure. That's solid value. But if you want to trade
a random
your
one, or would it need to
first,
be a random first, or would it need to be in a certain zone for you to feel good about that?
I would prefer if I could get like a 70% guarantee on top 10.
Just
like
top
if I can
10?
kind of avoid those bottom 2, I think you're in pretty good shape. Usually you can tell there's probably 2 or 3 really good teams. If you can kind of avoid those teams and push them to a team that's contending a bit, I think, top 9, top 10, you'd be all right. It's the bottom end of the tier for sure, but I think you're still going to get a pretty solid player and probably a running back. That's where when you talk about trading Rhamondre for a 25 first, you're probably replacing him with another running back coming in the draft, right? Probably as long as you're in the top 7 or 8.
All right, everybody feels good about the first, so let me ask you, because everybody's like, yes, I'd send them for first, no doubt. 25 second, 225 seconds in. Let's make it a little more challenging. 2 seconds for your Rhamondre.
I don't think I would, no. I'd rather
see
just
what
take
I'm
the
saying?
production.
So what do you do? 1 second. You're not going to do that. You're not going to trade him for it. So you can't move him for a first. Don't want to do it for 2 seconds. Wouldn't do it for a second. So I'm going to ask the final part. And this ain't a you thing. I'm just.
Yeah, that's how it is,
what the hell do we do? How do you even get shit done in Dynasty today? If you won't do it for this, you can't do it for that. So let me just ask, would you need... I'm trying to think.
You got to have a plus, right?
Okay.
To the first.
Okay. Kendre Miller in a random 25 second. And the second is coming from a team that is a contending team, so it's probably outside of the top 6 picks. So a second round pick in Kendre Miller for Rhamondre. I'm trying to provide some context so people who have Rhamondre and they want to try to trade, they've got some idea. Can't move him for first, nobody will buy. Don't want to do it for multiple seconds. So would you take a back-end second in Kendre Miller for him?
I think that certain people may. I'm not one of them, though.
Okay.
I'm of the belief that, especially with Rhamondre, I'm willing to kind of ride him out a little bit because I do think that he's probably going to be on the team for 2 years at least and potentially even longer than that. If you want to try and, hit on the next Kendre Miller or Rachaad White or Kyron Williams or Rhamondre was probably second rounder in his draft.
Yeah,
as well,
I'm not
right?
doing this.
You could try and do that, but
Patrick says 2 seconds and Jaleel McLaughlin. That's what you got. That's what he would want for Rhamondre.
Yeah.
It just seems.
But Jaleel McLaughlin is too player specific. Like there's one of him, and a lot of people like him, think he could break out this year. So yeah, you know, it's like I think in a general sense, a second and a running back for Rhamondre is probably not going to get it done for me personally. But that's because I'll take the production. I'll take what I'm probably getting from him than trying to figure it out at running back. But again, everything is team construction. But yeah, if I can't package him to get a first, I'm probably just going to keep him on my roster. Because I do think there's a world where they're playing him into his third and potentially even fourth season. Yes. Because they're not paying anybody. So I think there's a real reality for him to play beyond just those 2 years guaranteed.
JRich, there is some buzz, or at least there's this. I guess this is not buzz, but the Minnesota Vikings mini camp wrapped up, and the reports and everything that has gone around is, I mean, you shouldn't be shocked because we literally talked about this for months, but that Sam Darnold is going to enter training camp as the starting quarterback. I don't know if it deserves air horns, but he is going to enter training camp as the starting quarterback over one J.J. McCarthy, who was drafted, was he drafted 11th or something like that? Where was it, 10th, 11th?
Was in the top 10, overall? Right? I think it was 11, yeah.
11 overall.
The Jets took their pick at 10, and then he went 11.
And he was lauded and praised for his leadership, his ability to step right in and come in and lead an NFL team. And they said, oh, it's Samuel Darnold who will be out there first and foremost in training camp. Yep. What are your thoughts here? Does this shake you at all? Does this news rock you at all that J.J. McCarthy did not earn the starting job out of minicamp? Or is it a nothing burger as far as news is concerned, and he'll be the starting quarterback after their week 5 bye, and he'll take over and all is well? What are your thoughts about this situation, man?
I definitely think it's interesting, right? Because McCarthy was a guy that initially projected was a top 5 pick. And if you're a top 5 pick, you're probably starting in your rookie season. Little behold, he falls to 11. Now you have a bit of wiggle room if you're the Minnesota Vikings to where you say, you know, he could be a bridge quarterback. Justin Fields didn't start out the gate. Did Mac Jones start out the gate? I don't believe he did. So you talk about a guy who wasn't a top 10 pick. There is some wiggle room here. Is Sam Darnold good? No. But if Kevin O'Connell believes that he can run the offense better than J.J. McCarthy, I can accept that. And I see a world where maybe McCarthy doesn't win the job in camp because he's not that good. He could be good someday.
Oh, boy.
But is he better than Sam Darnold, who is a veteran quarterback of what, 8+ years in the NFL now? Something like that, 6 to 8 years for Sam Darnold? Probably not. So, again, could he win the job? Sure. Would I bank on it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't think he's going to win the job, and I think, like you said, he probably starts at some point mid-season at best.
Okay. Does it change your outlook on McCarthy at all?
Only if you thought he was going to start. It doesn't change my outlook, no. I didn't think he was going to start. And well, if he didn't start, I didn't have a problem with that because it means he's not ready. Right?
Here's why he ain't starting. Here's why he isn't starting. Because after week 1, here's what they have. The Niners, okay? They got the Niners in week 2, the Texans week 3, the Packers week 4, and the Jets week 5. They ain't throwing McCarthy out there for that murderer's row of a schedule. After week 1, I believe, Jay, I'm almost certain, I'm fairly certain that they are underdogs in every game, the Vikings. I heard that news.
After the Giants game? Because the Giants...
No, even versus the Giants, they're dogs. Versus the Giants. Every game of the season, the Vikings are underdogs. So, yeah, Jay, this is... It doesn't change anything for me because I didn't think he was going to start in the first damn place. Like I've been saying, I actually traded for Sam Darnold, believing and having the expectation that he would start and get some cheap starts out of him early. Doesn't change anything for me personally. I see a lot of people, oh my God, look at your king now. He can't even beat out Sam Darnold in OTAs and minicamp. Changes nothing for me personally. I am still very skeptical on how it's going to work out. I just want to see it. I just want to see it happen, right? I want to see...
When you see it, right? Yeah.
I want to see all these quarterbacks. It's not just J.J. McCarthy, Jay. It's quite a few of these guys. Doesn't change anything for me, but it's just interesting to see that Darnold has been named the starter going into training camp. I do believe he will start the season and get a decent amount of snaps under center for the Minnesota Vikings. But in Sam Darnold fashion, we probably know how the story will inevitably end at some point in time. So McCarthy should be out there, and I don't think it's... It's a story, but not a huge story, in my opinion, Jay. Tee Higgins. Tee Higgins is
Woo!
back. Tee Higgins is back, Jay. Signed a 1-year deal.
Begrudgingly back.
Well, he signed, it wasn't his tenure. From what I ascertained from this, no. It's from what I was told, it's sort of like what Barkley signed last year, where he signed the 1-year deal, and it was like a little more money on the back end just to get you in the building, right? So you're not disgruntled. It's not like you're signing the basic tender. You're getting a little something on top of it. You're getting some bonus on top of it.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't. It doesn't change the fact that Tee Higgins is going to be on a new team after this season. It does not change the fact that it's a 1-year deal. If anything, hopefully, if you're Cincinnati, it allows them to come in early, be there at the start of camp, not hold out. There were a lot of reports from contract gurus and former NFL people who thought this was a bad move for Tee Higgins to sign this, that he should have held out, should not have shown up. If they were his agent, they wouldn't have allowed him to sign the deal. Neither here nor there. Again, much like Rhamondre Stevenson, Tee Higgins is more attractive, no doubt. Plays in Cincinnati, is the receiver position, but he's kind of got that ADV. He's got this fake value that really shouldn't be there, but it is there. Tee Higgins signed his tender. How are you feeling about T going into 2024? I'll just say I feel good that he'll be there from the start. At least he'll be out there. The big thing for me with T is his availability. And a lot of times when you need him most, he's just not freaking there. But signs his deal. He'll be in Cincy this year. How you feeling about T?
I feel great. Like you said, right? The biggest thing is he'll be in camp for all of camp, right? Instead of the holdout. So there isn't going to be chemistry issues. There isn't going to be a loss of production early on as he kind of gets his footing. There will be no rust or potential not working out in the offseason. And he's still being paid almost $22 million. I mean, like, receivers can complain about not getting that long-term deal, but the franchise tag for wide receivers isn't exactly bad right now. It's pretty high. It's listed as a franchise tag on Spotrac, but as you said, maybe it is a 1-year deal where there is some bonuses and incentives.
Yeah, I think it's a 1-year deal.
But $22 million is not cheap for Tee Higgins. On the open market, he might get 25, but he's probably not getting much more than that. So people can say what they want about him not signing and understand all of that, especially with his injury history. But for fantasy purposes, it's phenomenal because he'll be in camp, he'll be ready for the season, and maybe he will return value this season in fantasy because he's dropping a little bit, but it still feels like he's a little bit overrated based off what he does week in and week out.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about some players that may be rated appropriately or slightly overrated here in a second. Jay, there's big buzz out of D.C. Big buzz out of D.C., out of Commanders land, that Jayden Daniels is going to take this team to the promised land. Real damn deal. There are a lot of people buzzing about this rookie quarterback, number 2 overall pick, and what he can do for this Commanders team. Terry McLaurin was on the Scott Van Pelt show, Jay, and he was just talking about his leadership and, you know, him setting the tone inside of that locker room, inside of that huddle already as a rookie. Now, this offensive line is putrid, so he's going to be running around quite a bit. But Jayden Daniels, man, there's a lot of enthusiasm around this guy. And when you're looking at the quarterback ranks, whether that's keep, trade, cut, whether that's underdog, he's got the type of skill set that can give you that elite fantasy finish from the quarterback position, whether it's single quarterback, super flex. Jayden Daniels in DC, Jay, the buzz. You feel it. You hear it. You see it. You taste it. How you feeling about old JD5 in Washington this year and the weapons that he has at his disposal with Cliff Kingsbury?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest wild card is probably Cliff, unfortunately, because Cliff was not a very good OC for the Arizona Cardinals. He'd start faster in the season, and then he'd kind of fall apart. But it is important to note that there was a stretch where Kyler Murray was QB1 and like a top 3 quarterback week in and week out for fantasy football. But Ray, the most interesting thing that I found when doing some research about Jayden Daniels and some projections for this season, Anthony Richardson's passing yards, over-under, 3,200. Jayden Daniels, 3,150. Touchdowns, 18 apiece. Rushing yards, 550 apiece. The only difference is 7.5 touchdowns and 4.5 for Jayden Daniels. So you're talking about a quarterback who is 101 right now on Underdog versus Anthony Richardson, who's at 57. And the only differentiating factor between their projections on DraftKings is 3 touchdowns rushing, which, again, probably the least sticky
So what are
stat
you
of
saying?
all of them.
What are you saying? Are you saying JRich is overrated, or are you saying Jayden Daniels is underrated?
Based off the numbers I'm looking at, Jayden Daniels is a little bit more underrated than JRich is overrated, because when you have a player who's projected for over 3,000 passing yards, which Lamar Jackson, for the record, only at 3,250, but much higher touchdown ceiling for him. But then you have Hurts, Richardson, and Daniels at 550 rushing yards. And that, for me, is what gives me a lot of confidence in Daniels. Not just that he's going to pass at a high level, which I love the weapons around him. They have a great team. Cliff is the wild card for me, not so much the players. But when you talk about Daniels, when you're getting median projections right around the range of quarterbacks that are much higher than him with similar rushing yard projections, that's when I have the confidence that in an outlier season where he can run for 7 or 8 touchdowns, which is possible, even if a little bit unlikely based off the projections, he's a guy that can absolutely smash for you outside the top 100 on underdog drafts right now. And Daniels is a guy that, in my opinion, Ray, should be taken right around CJ Stroud, who he actually projects higher than right now based off some of these numbers. It's scary, but it's a risk that might be worth taking. And I thought those numbers, when you look at Jaxson, who has a higher rushing ceiling, touchdown ceiling, and passing touchdown ceiling, but with JRich, it's a lot closer than people realize. And if you're not looking at those numbers, you won't realize how close it truly is between those two players.
Well, you talked about the weapons, and you like the weapons around him. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. You have 2 competent running backs, and Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler. You talked about Luke McCaffrey, Ben Sinnott. But is there a chance that he's getting some reinforcements on the way? Is there a chance that Brandon Ayuk is moved from the San Francisco 49ers to the Washington Commanders? There was the TikTok video, Brandon Ayuk on FaceTime with Jayden Daniels. They don't want me. We don't know what he's talking about. We do know that Brandon Ayuk wants money. He's seeing all these other receivers get paid. Nico Collins, Amon-Ra St. Brown, get in the bag. Talk about Brandon Ayuk, and how do you think this is ultimately going to play out? A trade? Is there a chance he's reunited? Those that don't know, he and Jayden Daniels played together at Arizona State. I know that seems like a long time ago, but Jayden Daniels and Brandon Ayuk did play again. They played together with Herm Edwards and Antonio Pierce, I believe, was there on the coaching staff before they cleaned house because of some other shit that happened, Jay. But do you think Ayuk's getting traded there? That's the question. You think Ayuk's getting moved there? Is he getting moved at all?
I think he's going to get moved. Yeah.
You do? You think Ayuk is going to be...
I don't necessarily believe they don't want me, because that's obviously not true. They want Brandon Ayuk. But the reality is that the price tag for Brandon Ayuk went up significantly, and it made him think, maybe I deserve $30 million. Maybe I deserve $28 million, which I believe Jaden Waddle got. I believe that...
Waddle. I forgot Waddle got paid
Waddle was $28 million a year that he got. A.J. Brown got his raise. He's over $30 million now. So you look at what Brandon Ayuk is probably worth. He's probably worth that, 27, 28, 29 million before the contracts were signed with Jefferson and Waddle and Smitty and A.J. Brown. He's probably in the 25 range. So if you're San Francisco, you're like, well, damn, now we got to pay him more money. And we know how strapped they are for cash, because next year they got to pay Brock Purdy. And I think no matter what, they would probably still choose Brock Purdy over Brandon Ayuk. I think he's going to get moved. I think he's going to get moved. I think he's going to be a casualty. They drafted Ricky Pearsall. If they believe he's a guy that can step in and fill that role, only more reason to move Ayuk. I don't know if the Commanders are the best fit, but they are a potential fit if he wants to go there and if they want to make the move. And obviously not paying a quarterback makes that much easier. But again, I still think the Steelers are in play because they've been heavily rumored for a long time, and we know they could use a wide receiver 1 or a co-alpha with George Pickens, depending on how you feel about him. But I think it's definitely interesting, and it will only create more and more tension because there's still receivers that could get signed. CeeDee Lamb's still looking for a deal too, Ray, and that price tag is not going to be cheap.
Don't get me started on the Cowboys and their financial woes and situations that they have going on. I saw somebody in the chat ask, does Ricky Pearsall make Brandon Ayuk expendable? I don't.
To the Niners, maybe. To the Niners, maybe. Not in general, but to the Niners.
I don't
maybe.
know. I don't know if I would go that far. If I think his price tag makes him expendable, not Ricky Pearsall.
Exactly right.
So
yeah, a combination of the two.
Do I think Ricky Pearsall is going to come in and do what Ayuk has been able to do? I do not believe that they are of equal talent, but maybe San Francisco finds. Maybe they utilize George Kittle more. Maybe they use.
It's a more of a committee approach, right? Than
more
a
of a
big
committee.
Three.
They do some different things offensively. I'll just say this: they better find a way to replace it for Brock Purdy's sake, because when you've got a player who on barely 100 targets had 1,300 receiving yards, Jay,
18
when he's
yards
averaging 18 yards a catch,
yep.
Like that right there is a big piece of the reason why that Brock Purdy is so effective and efficient. So you better be confident that letting him walk, you've got the infrastructure and the pieces in place to replace that, because I don't believe it's as replaceable as some may think. I do not believe that Ricky Pearsall is a one-for-one replacement for Brandon Ayuk. No. But it's a great segue with you talking about Jayden Daniels and his projected numbers versus Anthony Richardson and Lamar Jackson, because I want to talk about some players that can make the leap this season. Some guys that we think, or at least are being discussed, Jay, as taking the leap in 2024. So that's what we're going to talk about now, the 2024 leap. And I wanted to start this off by talking about some players who have, and I'm using air quotes for those of you not watching. If you are and you're here, hit the thumbs up button, like the content on the YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening, make sure that you are subbed to the podcast feed, leave a rating and review. But these are elite value players that we have right now that are ranked very high on KTC, very high in our dynasty leagues. These are the players that you would trade a first-round pick for. But Jay, it's time to figure out, is this value going to yield and bear fruit in 2024? And I think the top guy to start off talking about is a player that we all like. He's valued very high, a top 6 receiver on Keep Trade Cut. Let's go to the Jets. Talk about Garrett Wilson, Jay. Wide receiver 6 on KTC. Garrett Wilson led the league in routes last year. Ran a lot of them, Jay. Over 160 targets, catching passes from Zach Wilson and this guy that plays in the XFL and this other guy that plays in the UFL. No Aaron Rodgers, who was hurt early. Talk about Garrett Wilson. Are you betting on him truly? Don't just give us what all the fantasy people talk. Oh, yeah, he's going to smash and be like, do you really believe that Aaron Rodgers is coming back off of this Achilles tear and is going to feed Garrett Wilson to a level that is going to return top 6 wide receiver value, production, all the like in year 3? Are you in on that, Jay?
Yeah, absolutely. Garrett Wilson's a player that, for better or worse, has been screwed by his quarterback play over the past 2 seasons. The volume has been some of the highest in the NFL, period. You talk about volume over the past 2 seasons, he's probably in the top 5. He has over 315 targets in his past 2 years. Now he's going into year 3. He's got a more competent quarterback that's much more accurate, that will still get him the ball. I think the most important thing here is that it wasn't like there was a lack of volume despite the offensive woes, right? When you look at how much he's targeted, he's a receiver that could absolutely return top 5 value, top 6 value, and especially with where he's priced right now, and in my opinion, having one of the better touchdown ceilings in the NFL at the wide receiver position, especially with Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball. That's where you need to be in on Garrett Wilson, because the volume has always been there. That won't be something new for him. It's just the efficiency should be much better, and the touchdown ceiling is much higher as well with Aaron Rodgers. So you improve the quarterback play, keep the volume the same, slightly more efficient, and all of a sudden you have a 1,400 yard wide receiver, and I'm absolutely in on Garrett Wilson in 2024. He should smash, and I think we finally will see the Garrett Wilson we've all been waiting for. I think the bigger question, Ray, is can we adjust if he's not that good to where we're like, okay, maybe it's not the quarterback play, and he's just not the guy that we thought he could be coming out of Ohio State. But how do you feel about Garrett Wilson? He's priced, right around that Puka Nacua range behind the top 5 elite wide receivers. But I think he's deserving of being that next guy because he has that ceiling that we can't say about anyone else below him.
So can you just name the receivers that are directly behind Garrett Wilson? I'm assuming it's A.J. Brown. Who else is there?
Give me 1 second.
I think it's A.J. Brown. It's got to be Malik Neighbors is up there as well.
So right now, you have CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua. They are all ranging ADP from 2 through 10. Next, you have Garrett Wilson, who after Garrett Wilson, for me, is a massive tier break. Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake London, Chris Olave, Brandon Ayuk, Devonta Adams, Nico Collins, Jalen Waddle, Deebo Samuel, Mike Evans, and obviously
how is it a massive tier break between Garrett Wilson and Nico, Garrett Wilson and Ayuk, Garrett Wilson and Olave? How's there a massive tier break there?
So the main thing really is when you look at the projected yardage for these players, and especially with Garrett Wilson, because he has an 8 for his touchdown number this year, which I think is more than fair for Garrett Wilson. That's where everyone below him has a touchdown number of 6 or lower, except for Mike Evans, who obviously is a touchdown monster himself. So when you look at the top guys, right, all the top guys are projected for between 7.5 to 9.5 touchdowns. Garrett Wilson, of course, projected for 8 touchdowns. All those players as well are 1,150 yards or more. In the case of the top 6, they're 1,250 yards or more, plus those 7.5 plus touchdowns. So exactly, right? So that is a clear top 6 for me. You could kind of separate them in 2 tiers, and then you have Puka Nacua and Garrett Wilson below them. But after that, you have players that are barely over 1,000 yards or at 1,000 and are at 6 or less touchdowns, other than, as I mentioned, Mike Evans, who does belong in that Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson tier, in my opinion. And so
I'm going through the comments real quick, Jay, and I see, I hear a lot of names that I trust over Garrett Wilson. That was from Jorge from Rhode Island. He said there are a lot of names that he heard that he trusts over Garrett Wilson this season. Fade the off-field A-Rod narratives. Patrick says, don't think there's a tier break. Good morning to you, Gretchen, GMGP. She says she was a little late, our girl Gretchen. Thank you for tapping in. Luke says Marv over Wilson for me. Stanley says Nico Collins. But then we had a lot of people who said absolutely. They are on board with you. Garrett Wilson, yes. I trust Garrett Wilson. We got to sell for Garrett Wilson. It's just interesting, and I wanted to start with him because he is the player that is valued very high, Jay. He is valued very high. And there are a lot of ancillary things around his profile that should signal and have those sounders flash. Like, yes, those bright lights, yes. I don't know. I just want to see this offense. I want to see Aaron Rodgers. I don't think any of us really know what a Robert Saleh offense looks like outside of get Breece Hall the ball the whole bunch. Just feels like a situation where everything should be there for him to be good. They've got a very good defense. They've got a strong rushing attack. They've added improvements to the offensive line with Fashanu and Tyron Smith. Everything should be there for the Jets to take a step forward in 2024, Jay, but we'll see. I'm not sure. I'll just say, let me just ask you, if there were a way for you to pivot, would you move Garrett Wilson for anybody in that tier below? Wilson and a plus. Would you move him for Drake London and a second-round pick? Would you move him for, I don't know, one of the other receivers, Nico Collins, and a pick? Would you preemptively get out of the expected boom or bust, whatever side of the coin you land on, for one of those lesser-tiered receivers and a pick?
I personally wouldn't know. Unless it was a first.
You would not. You would not.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not betting against the guy who's averaging 165 targets over the past couple seasons. Like he's saw an increase in targets from last year from 147 to 168, and he may actually get more in 2024. So I think people need to understand that the floor for Garrett Wilson is quite high. Like, yes, his price tag is high, but the floor is also quite high as well. And so when you have a player that's going to get that volume every single week, and he's had a 56% catch percentage over the past 2 seasons, and Ray, you've been looking at this a lot, a 44% success rate last season, 47 the year before that. I think we expect those numbers to go up with Aaron Rodgers, and obviously his touchdown rate as well should go up with Aaron Rodgers. So I think when you have the foundational floor of the targets, which have been there for the past 2 seasons, adding in a more efficient quarterback, there should only be better things for him in 2024. And that's why I wouldn't make that move. I think there's a lot of question marks beyond him in the drafts right now. And I think if you can have a player like him, he could be a guy who can elevate. And especially on the Jets, we've seen Jets players get steamed up in ADP over the years, even in the preseason, to where he's may not be as valuable as he could be in a couple months.
All right, Jay, another player that I want to talk about from elite value to elite production. And this is a team that lost both of their top pass catchers last season, boasts the #1 quarterback being drafted on Underdog, the dynasty QB1, the monster himself, Josh Allen, and his Travis Kelce, Dalton Kincaid. Does he take a step this year, Jay, to becoming an elite tight end? Or are we playing a dangerous game with him as tight end 3 on KTC and not capitalizing on the value that he brings to the table now? We talked about who on earth is trading for Rhamondre, Stevenson, who's trading for Tee Higgins, who's giving up a first-round pick for those guys. People are giving up first-round picks, you know, like it's nobody's business for tight ends in Dynasty, trying to catch and chase the next Travis Kelce, the next Mark Andrews. So with Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs out of the picture, do we truly see Dalton Kincaid go from a really good player that we like, that we're excited about? Nah, man, screw that. Is he going to be elite in 2024 and return that tight end 3 price tag on KTC?
I think it's a great possibility for sure. The biggest problem for me is who's going to be that slot wide receiver and what the hell do they do with Keon Coleman? Those are the two big questions. Is if they want to play him as that slot option, that primary slot that we've seen be great for Josh Allen in his first couple seasons in the NFL, then he could be great. But if it's not that role and it's kind of a hybrid where he's outside a bit more, he's in the slot, or he's lined inside, it's just the biggest thing with the Bills is that there's so many moving parts. You don't know who the guy is going to be, but that's what makes Kincaid very interesting, because if he is, he's absolutely a massive value because he's going to return numbers that are similar to Mark Andrews in his peak seasons, what we expect of McBride this year, what we saw from Laporta last season, Kelce over the past few seasons as well. I'm a big believer in Kincaid. It's just a tough projection based off the role and what we're going to see. But where he's at right now, I think the touchdown ceiling is great for him. I think he'll be used in the red zone a lot. And then the other big question, Ray, and you can speak on this a little bit, is he actually going to be healthy? Going back to Utah, he wasn't that healthy. He wasn't in every single game. And then even in the NFL last year, he was banged up a little bit. Do you think you can get 17 games out of Dalton Kincaid? And one, do you care? But how do you feel about his ceiling being only behind Mark Andrews, Trey McBride, Travis Kelce, and Sam Laporta right now on Underdog ADP?
Yeah, can he stay healthy for a full 17? I'm not going to predict any NFL player to stay healthy for a full 17. Doubtful. A lot of players get hurt. I think he's got just as good of an opportunity this year to actually return it. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't know, man. I am very curious to see sort of chicken and the egg with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. I want to see how much Diggs made Allen or Allen made Diggs, because since coming to Buffalo in 2020, it's been a completely different Josh Allen and a completely different Stephon Diggs. For some people who were kind of new to fantasy football or new to Dynasty, there was a big conglomerate of folks going into that COVID year, that 2020 season, where people thought Josh Allen was a bust. Don't re-sign him. He's never going to be able to improve his completion percentage. They make the trade for not Stephon Diggs, Jay. Who did they trade for before Diggs? Who was a Buffalo Bill for like 15 minutes before Diggs? Here's some trivia for you. Let's see if you can get who was a Buffalo Bill for about 15 minutes, at least it was reported, before Stephon Diggs.
Antonio Brown.
AB.
Antonio Brown.
It was all Mr.
Brown.
CTESPN himself, Antonio Brown, for about 11 minutes. But since the Diggs trade,
Totally vetoed the trade.
Allen went crazy. Allen's gone crazy. So I'm very curious to see how this offense is just going to look, period, Jay. I thought about putting James Cook in here. Is it a year where we see James Cook be fed more? And
James Cook is interesting, man.
Ascend to another level in this Buffalo offense? I'm not sure, but I believe that if it were going to happen, this team is probably set up in a way that Dalton Kincaid should be fed this fall, man.
Yeah, the tight end value is so difficult because everyone's gung-ho on tight ends now, and it's like tight end was dead 2 years ago. No one wanted any tight ends. Now, all of a sudden, you have this resurgence in value for the tight ends. Kincaid is definitely a big part of that, Ray. And I don't know if you want to transition to another tight end.
Another tight end? Yeah, it's a great segue.
Because I was going to ask you a question, because there's 3 tight ends right now on DK that have the same yardage, and I want to know, I want you to rank who you think is going to be number 1, number 2, and number 3 of this 3-pack. Of course, the tight end we're talking about is once again, for the 4th year in a row, none other than Atlanta Falcons tight end Kyle Pitts.
Your favorite.
But you have Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid, and George Kittle all at 750.5 receiving yards for the season. How would you rank those 3 players, and how do you feel about Kyle Pitts now in this new Rams-style offense and Kirk Cousins at quarterback?
I'd take George Kittle over both of them for this season.
Okay.
For this season, for 2024, I would take George Kittle ahead of both of those guys for 2024.
Interesting. Okay, so tell me why.
It would be Kittle, Kincaid, and Pitts. George Kittle's incredible, man. I don't think you look at what he did last year, and people continue to forget that he had over 1,000 receiving yards last season, and he was one of the tight ends. He didn't run a ton of routes. He wasn't out there doing as much as some of the other tight ends, and yet the efficiency was just so incredible for George Kittle. A lot of this, it falls on the right arm, shoulder, and elbow of Brock Purdy as to why I'm so in on Kittle. And if this idea and this notion that Brandon Ayuk is going to be dealt, I do not believe it's going to be Ricky Pearsall who absorbs all of those Ayuk targets. It's going to be George Kittle. His success rate at the tight end position versus man and zone defense, out of this world. The efficiency is out of this world. And this is the first season in which Brock Purdy, again, goes into the offseason program healthy. He didn't do shit all of last offseason because his elbow was hanging on by a thread. This year, he's fully healthy. He's got Kittle. You've got a disgruntled Ayuk. And we already know how Shanahan does with that, right? Doghouse City. I'm in on Kittle in 2023 and 2024. I think for contending rosters, he is one of the few tight ends that possesses that elite type ceiling where he finishes as a tight end 3 or better, but he's priced as the old guy that can't stay healthy, that doesn't get a lot of targets. I'm all in on Kittle this year, so I would take Kittle over those two.
Yeah, I mean, I like Kittle a lot too. You know, he's valued a little bit less.
But the question is about Kincaid. Does Kincaid take that next step, Jay?
I think he can. The guy that can turn is Kyle Pitts.
Stop straddling the fence.
The problem is where the line's at. I really like it. I would take a slight over. Like, I think 800 yards and 7 touchdowns is what you're looking at for Kincaid. And I think that'd be more than acceptable, but I don't think that necessarily returns value. You talk about Kittle, he can easily get 900 to 1,000 yards. The question for him is probably closer on the touchdowns, but you do have the built-in insulation of if for some reason Ayuk is gone, his projection goes up dramatically, right? But now he's priced where he's at. But we haven't talked about Kyle Pitts. Surprise, surprise. We're not really that in on Kyle Pitts this year. But what is it that you think could be for Kyle Pitts in 2024 that we haven't already seen for the past 3 seasons with Kyle Pitts? Because I think it's going to be more of the same. He might give you 700 yards and 4 touchdowns, and you're drafting him as tight end 6 right now on Underdog.
Who's draft? You mean Kyle Pitts? Listen, man, what's it, year 5? What year are we in of Kyle Pitts?
I think it's 4 for Pitts right now.
Year 11? For year 4? Sure, it's got to happen. It's got to happen at some point. It's got to happen. Damn it, it's got to happen at some point, Jay. If it doesn't happen, well, let me just ask you. He's still like 23, right? And I'm
23.7, yeah.
Scott Connor, shout out to Scott. He always talks about not giving up on elite tight ends early. Look at Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram gets jettisoned out of New York. Oh, he's dead. He sucks. Yep. And then all of a sudden he gets 300 and something routes out of the tight end position, and he's just smashing everybody, right? Yeah, 400 targets, all that stuff. Still an elite athlete. So you're not going to quit Kyle Pitts. And I think even with the failed season, he's still going to be valued as like a top 10 dynasty tight end because then the narrative will change. He just needs to get out of Atlanta. I didn't put Drake London in this conversation, but the real question is, no hopium, real shit. Do you think Kirk Cousins is the elixir for Kyle Pitts in 2024? Because you look at what Hawkinson did with Cousins, and when he was out there, dude, the amount of routes, the way that Cousins utilized Hawkinson, if Pitts gets 80% of that, he's going to smash. He is going to do damage in Atlanta. I know you dislike him, but can you be objective here and bring some rational takes to the table here?
I think that the Hawkinson comparison is unfair to Hawkinson because I think he's a better tight end than Kyle Pitts is. But as a route runner and a receiver, I'm with you 100%.
I'm not comparing them, the athlete, or I'm just comparing how Kirk Cousins utilized TJ Hawkinson in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, but I think the differentiator here is you're talking about Kevin O'Connell and the offense that he ran. We've never seen Sean McVay use a tight end, right? Like we really haven't. We've kind of,
Sean
thought about
McVay?
it, projected
You're
it.
talking about
because Zach Robinson's coming from Sean McVay's system, right? Sean McVay's never really used the tight end overly heavily. Now, KOC comes from the same system, but he utilized Hawkinson heavily in that system. So I'm curious how they want to go about it. Pitts should be a massive part of the offense. It's just, how do they utilize him? Or should we be looking to a wide receiver too, like Darnell Mooney, and say, man, this offense every year supports 2 wide receivers and sort of produces tight ends depending on where you look within the offensive structure. And is Zach Robinson going to lean on a Mooney and a London, or will he lean on Pitts in more than a red zone role? Because in the red zone for the touchdowns, I think Pitts could be a monster because he's huge. But outside of that, is he going to be utilized as the second target? I don't know if he will. I'd say he's probably a number 2B or number 2A, not so much the number 2 where he gets 140 targets. I think he's closer to 120, maybe 110.
Alex says, who has more yards, Mooney or Pitts?
I would say Mooney.
Jay, come on, man.
I would. I'd say Mooney 100%. Mooney can the deep ball that Kirk Cousins throws so well, Mooney can run that, right? And Pitts probably isn't going to do that. So if you're telling, you look at what Jordan Addison did this season, you say, can Darnell Mooney do that? And you say, absolutely.
Okay.
It just depends how do they utilize them. But don't tell me that Pitts is the for sure number 2. I don't think that's necessarily the case.
I think he's the for sure number 2. I am going to tell you he is the for sure number 2 in that offense. I am going to tell you that he is the for sure number 2 in that offense. Now, Jay, this player I'm putting on the board, there was nobody, right, in the fantasy football space with more hope and enthusiasm and excitement for this player. Nobody. Everybody's on him now. But I'm starting to sit back like, are we sure? I just want to know, Jay, is he going to make that leap? I think he is personally, but I am trying to abstain from the conversation because I want it to be an objective conversation, Jay. But is the shark been jumped with this player, and does he make this leap from quarterback 7 to QB1? And if you're not watching, you see it's the big dog. It's that dude. It's Mr. Hand Cannon himself, Anthony Eugene Richardson. JRich, he is valued highly. He is drafted early. The enthusiasm is there for Anthony Richardson to come out here and fucking smash with Shane Steichen in 2024. But Jordan Richards, you're looking up and down that board and you're seeing the names behind JRich. And you're showing me these projections and rushing yards and Jayden Daniels and Lamar Jackson. Does he return elite production for his elite value? JRich, does JRich make it happen in 24?
Much like JRich, yes, of course, JRich can get it done. The question isn't whether or not he can get it done. It's whether or not he will be on the field. And that, I think, is the biggest problem with Richardson. I love him. I think he's absolutely going to produce at an elite level. But when you look at his projections, it clearly tells you that, like, either they're a little bit skeptical on the health or they're a little bit skeptical on the offense. And in my opinion, the offense is phenomenal. It's probably top 3, in my opinion, in the NFL. If I was picking a head coach or coordinator, Shane Steichen would probably be 1 or 2 on my list. I love Shanahan. I love McVay. I love KOC. But I love Shane Steichen. So I'm very excited for JRich. I think it's just a matter of health, unfortunately, for him. But he can absolutely return elite production. Ray, do you think he can be the quarterback 1 for more than 5 weeks this season? Maybe 5 weeks is a little much. Let's say 3 weeks this season. You assume Allen gets 3 or 4 of those, Hurts gets 3 or 4 of those, Mahomes gets 1 or 2, Lamar gets 1 or 2. Can JRich get you 3 or 4 QB1 weeks this season?
Yeah, I think he can. I think 4 is tough. I think
4 is a lot. Yeah, 4 is a lot.
I think like the line should be 2.5. The line should be over under 2.5. JRich.
We'll do 2. We'll give you the push.
Oh, you're giving me the whole number.
I'll give you the push.
Yeah, I'll take the over. I would take the over barely. It'd be like right at 3. I think he.
What would you project his games played at? Because that's my biggest conundrum. Is I am out on a limb saying I love JRich and I would draft him, especially in Dynasty, because you have him whether he gets hurt or not.
Full season. I think he's playing full season.
You're giving him 17 games.
What? Yes. Why wouldn't I? The injuries were fluky. It wasn't like
were.
he went out there and was running and strained a hammy or threw the ball and felt the pop. There were two fluky injuries. He dove in the end zone and bashed his head in the end zone on one play. Right, got flipped
Is
in
that
and
gonna
bashed
change,
back
though?
his head.
That can
be taught. And then the one where it took him out for the season, he's rolling out to the right, got moved off his spot, was tackled from behind, landed on his shoulder. There was nothing inside of the games that make me think, oh my God, this dude is doomed. Hell yeah, I think he plays full season. I think he's playing full season. That's why I want you to stop straddling the fence with this if healthy. Do you think he's going to do it or not?
Dude, he played 4 games last season. And he was
so
hurt
then,
in all of them.
So then my question to you...
It's not that I'm saying that I think he's bad, but he needs, show me a little bit.
I'm not saying that you're saying he's bad. I'm saying if the health is that significant of a concern, should you not be trying to move him then in Dynasty to avoid the risk? Can you mitigate? Would you... So if you're that damn concerned that he's not going to play, should you not be trying to move him then? Because one of the comments said, if he gets, what happens to his value if he gets hurt this year? What happens to it? Probably dies, right? It plummets. You don't think anything would happen?
The value will plummet. I don't think it would move a ton.
I think it would move a lot.
When he plays, he's great. I think you look at I think for me, the analysis is Lamar Jackson, right? Lamar Jackson is the player that's always, was the guy that was always hurt.
You can't, no, because he's not Lamar. You can't, and not even that you're saying he's Lamar, but he's legit not Lamar. So I don't even think you can compare the two.
Okay, but but even if you want to, let's just use Lamar as a use case. His lowest QB ranking is QB 9.
Mm-hmm.
His entire career, right? So look at ALLGAS, he gets hurt. He's still a top 10 quarterback probably, but even if he's hurt.
That's after Lamar came out in his second season and won MVP. People are legitimate. This is not me. There are people who are literally saying we haven't seen JRich play football that much. People saw Lamar Jackson dominate at Louisville, come in early, win an MVP in his second season. So that does buy him grace and leeway to succeed. And he's never failed in the NFL. He's never failed. JRich is still, as much as I love him, he's still a massive, massive projection. And my only pushback is, if you are in the camp that he can't stay healthy, that he's injury prone, that he's not that good of a thrower, would now not be the best time to liquidate?
Could be, but here's your options. Caleb Williams. You liquidating JRich for Caleb Williams? Probably not. Justin Herbert? Probably not. Jordan Love? Probably not. The only case you can make is maybe Kyler Murray or Jayden Daniels if you get a solid plus, right? Because you get that rushing floor. You have, some upside there. Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff. There's no way. The players ahead of him, Burrow, Hurts, Lamar, Stroud, Mahomes, Allen. That's it. So if he's in a weird spot where if he gets hurt, okay, maybe he falls behind Love, maybe Kyler.
He's going to, if he gets hurt, he's behind. Let's assume Daniels and Williams are competent. I'm not even going the rest of the rookie quarterbacks. Those two are ahead of him, no doubt. Kyler Murray probably jumps him. Brock Purdy, probably not because of how people feel about Brock, but low end maybe. But I believe Love, Caleb,
okay, so
Jayden
Love is the
Daniels.
question. Herbert? Probably not. Probably not. Herbert's not going to have a great season.
Probably.
Maybe. So I think you're looking at, right now he's QB 7. I think you're looking at, maybe QB 11, worst case. And that's if he's hurt and not playing again.
Okay.
But when he's on the field, he's a top 5 quarterback. He really is. He's right up there. So that's where we haven't seen it in long enough stretches to where the value is QB1, QB2, QB3. But when he's on the field, he's great. And that's why I say, he's going to be great for fantasy. It's just whether or not he's on the field. Like you said, if he plays 17, he's probably QB1 next season. He probably is. Right?
Last player,
QB2, QB3.
Last main player that we want to talk about, and then we'll do some rapid fire to round out the show. And this player he does not have elite value today, but he's got a lot of value. And people like this player. And he's the type of player that the Dynasty community will 1,000%, Jay. He goes out there all it will take, I'm telling you, dude, it won't take a 200-yard game. It won't take a 100-yard game. All he needs to do is week 1, catch a 40-yard go route, get up, swag out, catch a touchdown pass. But this player that I want to talk about is GP, George Pickens, Jay. again, he's in an offense that you look at it on paper and you're just kind of like, I don't know. But he is in a role and is projected for a yardage total that should signify and indicate that Vegas they're bullish on his outlook. And he is the type of player, Jay, that you can see 1,000% finishing the season as a top 12 dynasty wide receiver. I don't know where he's priced right now, but he is that type of guy that people want to buy into. George Pickens. Does he take the leap this year with Arthur Smith, who, as the head coach, people hated him, but when he was out coordinating shit in Tennessee, people wanted him to be the head coach because he was so genius out there in Tennessee. What do you think about Pickens this season, man?
Pickens is very interesting, right? You talked about the yardage total. It's 1,000 yards. He profiles basically the same as Jalen Waddle, right? So you talk about underdog ADP, 20.5 for Jalen Waddle and 41.2 for George Pickens. So very different there. Even if you want to go to DK Metcalf as a slightly higher touchdown ceiling, then it's still like not even close. He's projected for more yards and similar touchdowns to Drake London. He's projected for more yards than Ayuk, DJ Moore, Cooper Kupp, Michael Pittman, Amari Cooper, Zay Flowers. List goes on and on. I think the biggest problem for me, right, it's not so much that I dislike George Pickens. It's that I don't know whether to believe in the Steelers offense or the Arthur Smith offense. Because while people don't like the Atlanta Falcons offense, their wide receiver one is very good. And this is where, when I did the pod about the Atlanta Falcons last year, their wide receiver or the Bears
is very good.
Yeah, like they actually get volume. You're going to see 120, 130 targets for George Pickens, right? It's when you look at supporting two guys in a Smith offense, that's when things fall apart. And that's why I was bearish on Kyle Pitts last season. It wasn't so much that I disliked Drake London. I thought the targets could be there for him, and they were. I believe he had 112 last year. You look at the years before that, A.J. Brown, 120 targets. The problem is the elite ceiling in a Smith offense doesn't exist. And so when you talk about Pickens, though, where you draft him, he's a great value because he can produce similar numbers to a DK Metcalf, to a Jalen Waddle. It's just you're not going to get the 1,300-yard, 8-touchdown season unless he is super efficient. But I love Pickens where he's priced, and I think there is a lot of upside. And the hate towards the Arthur Smith offense is a little bit short-sighted because if they play more like a Steelers offense and less like an Arthur Smith offense, even a little bit, that only benefits Pickens more. And I think being the only show in town does give him a fairly high ceiling that you should project. And the reason why his median projection is so high. So I do like Pickens a lot. The QB play is definitely questionable, but I don't think that should take away from what we could see from George Pickens in 2024.
I'm just looking at quarterbacks and their pass attempts, down the field in 2023. And I know a lot of people kind of shit on Russell Wilson, but 20.1% of his passes were for 15-plus yards, which was top 20 in the NFL last year. Looking at his throws, 20 yards or more downfield. Where's old Russell Wilson at in this category? Jay, Patrick Mahomes towards the bottom. Russell Wilson was third in the NFL in pass attempts that went 20-plus yards. I don't know if that's good or bad. When you look at the top 5 of that list, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Will Levis, all inside the top 5 of pass attempts, 20-plus yards downfield. Looking at throws that were 5 or more yards down the field, Russell Wilson, dead last in the NFL. So when I look at this, and I look at what Russell Wilson was asked to do in Denver, he was set up to fail. The fact that he's launching the ball down the field more than anybody else in the freaking NFL, 15, 20 yards down the field. And he is dead last. 32 of 32 qualified quarterbacks. 45% of his throws were 5 yards or more. Like he's all the way at the bottom. And when you look at the top of that list, C.J. Stroud, number 1. You got Jalen Hurts, 3rd. Brock Purdy, 5th. Probably need to have him stop throwing the ball like that and do some different things, some creativity in that offense. I don't think it was a good marriage in Denver. I do think that Russell Wilson's skill has diminished a little bit, but he probably was not as bad as we want to sort of believe or think that he was in Denver in 2023, Jay. So let's go through some rapid fire. I've got a couple of other names that we discussed pre-show that we should bring up to see if they would make the leap, take the leap, whatever you want to call it. Jay, let me throw a couple of names up on the screen, and let's just quickly kind of go through if you think these players are going to make that leap here this season. And let's start out with everybody's favorite Houston Texan, Tank Dell, Jay. Is Tank Dell take the leap from sort of young gun wide receiver 2? Does he assert himself atop the Texans depth chart as the wide receiver 1 tethered to CJ Stroud and cement himself amongst the top receivers in Dynasty Fantasy Football?
As much as I want to think so, I don't believe that, no. I think that it's going to be Nico Collins. I think he's paid to do that and work in that role. Tank Dell is great, but I don't think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 for Houston, no. Do you feel any differently? Or what would the chance you give him to be the wide receiver 1?
I believe it. Quickly, I believe it's going to be Nico Collins. That's where I'm at, my thought.
Nico
Zay
Collins,
Flowers.
very nicely priced.
Zay Flowers in Baltimore, Jay. Does he make that second-year leap and turn himself into a legitimate option that you're going to want to draft early and often in Dynasty Fantasy Football moving forward? Zay Flowers, what say you?
I don't think so, no. I don't know if Lamar is going to get him the ball enough. He should be the number 1 target. It still hasn't been a good enough role, in my opinion. I still think Andrews is probably still the highest ceiling player in that offense, even at tight end. Zay Flowers will be the number 1 wide receiver. I just don't think it means much in Baltimore. We wanted more from not from Greg Roman, from who was it who came in? Didn't really happen, though. Didn't really happen.
You're talking about Todd Monken. Todd Monken.
That's his name. Todd Monken. Didn't get enough from Monken.
Will Levis.
Ooh.
JRich.
Ooh.
The gunslinger himself.
Ooh,
Will
man.
Madman Levis. Does he make the leap in year 2 under Brian Callahan with his Jamar Chase and air quotes Calvin Ridley, one of your favorite receivers in the NFL? Does Will Levis get it done and cement himself as the quarterback of the future for the Tennessee Titans in 2024?
That's a different question than I would take it. I think he could.
That's the question that I asked.
So my answer is no. But if I could pick a player to be the... Damn it. Why was my name? Sam Howell. If I could pick a player to be Sam Howell of 2024, it would be Will Levis. When you look at the expected outcomes of his playmakers, one, their running backs are trash. So they're going to be catching the ball a lot.
Dude, their running backs are not... Who's running back?
Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard is not a good runner.
I almost put Spears on it. No, they have a very good backfield. This is a good backfield.
They have a great pass-catching backfield. Yeah, it's phenomenal. They got Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, which is great for Will Levis. If they choose to throw the ball 650 times, a la Sam Howell, I think that Will Levis could be the Sam Howell of 2024. He's got Calvin Ridley, he's got DeAndre Hopkins, he's got Chigga Conquo. They have a great cast of playmakers, and if they choose to just air the ball out for fantasy, I think Levis could be great. His projections aren't quite where I was hoping they'd be, but Ridley looks like a bit of a value. Hopkins looks like a bit of a value. And so with that, you kind of say, well, if it goes right, Levis could also in turn be a value with Callahan at the helm calling plays, and they throw the ball a ton. Offensive line is bad. And as well, Ray, we haven't accounted for the potential rushing upside, which we haven't seen yet from Levis, but maybe we see it a little bit. I'm not going to say a lot, but a little bit.
Chris Spellman agrees with you. Feels it's a good comparison. JRich, I could definitely see a Sam Howell-like season out of Will Levis. Let's wrap it up with the final player, everybody's favorite wide receiver 1 that is not the wide receiver 1, but could he make the leap in year 2? And does it need to happen this year for one Jaxson Smith-Njigba? JRich, does it need to happen in 24 for JSN to keep that value, whatever value it is in there? But does JSN make the leap, turn into the Seahawks' number 1 pass-catching target in 24?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know I'm a big DK Metcalf fan, but no, it will not be JSN season in 2024.
You laugh about it. You are very dismissive of this question, Jay. You are very dismissive and very confident.
I just don't think it's going to happen. He's projected for the same numbers as Tyler Lockett. So who do you think's better, Tyler Lockett or Jaxson Smith-Njigba? I think it's a toss-up for me personally. Maybe leaving JSN, maybe leaving Lockett, but Metcalf is the clear one, and it's not even particularly close.
Okay,
I don't think it's great for his value.
Derek Lincoln says JSN is the most overrated player in fantasy, period.
Hey, man,
Jay put a period. So. Oh, same for Rome Odunze. He said Rome Odunze is also just JSN in different colors.
I would say that player is Malik Neighbors personally, but let's see.
Malik Neighbors is what? Overrated?
Probably the most overrated player for 2024, yeah. Daniel Jones is still his quarterback, baby. That value is not going up. It's not going up, my friend. Ray, do you think he can have 900 receiving yards this season?
Yes. Yes, I do.
All right, we'll see.
I do. We've got a bet on
We'll
Malik
see.
Neighbors anyway. We've got a bet.
Do we?
The
have bet on
hell
Malik
yeah, we
Neighbors?
do.
What is the bet?
Like 850 yards. It was whatever it was on Underdog.
Oh, was
it
it
was like
850?
850.
Okay.
It was
That's
whatever it was on. We got a bet on. Yeah, it was. We have a bet on that. We absolutely do. JRich is out along with Derek Lincoln on Jaxson
I'm out on Malik.
Smith.
Might
and
be out on
Njigba.
Tank Dell too. We'll see. That value's pretty high. Pretty high. If he's the wide receiver 3 in Houston, Ray, can he be a top 24 wide receiver?
If he's the wide receiver, who you talking about? Tank Dell?
Yes.
If he's the wide receiver 3 in Houston, what?
Can he be a top 24 wide receiver?
Let's finish with that. How do those receivers rank out? Well, Diggs, Collins, Dell.
So I love Tank Dell, but I sort of agree with how they're currently ranked: Collins, Diggs, and then Dell. Because if you believe that Dell's going to be outside more, which he was phenomenal at, but so was Nico Collins, and then you have Stephon Diggs, like literally one of the best route runners of his generation, playing in the slot. You're basically looking at DeAndre Hopkins when he went to Arizona and he was playing in the slot more in Arizona. So like you think about that, it's just, it could be very good in Houston. But to be fair to CJ Stroud, he's second in the NFL in terms of yards per game or yards projection. It's like 4150, only behind Patrick Mahomes. So he definitely projects for a massive ceiling, but the wide receiver 3 could disappoint, but they're all highly rated, so someone has to disappoint. It's just, is it Tank Dell?
Yeah,
or is it Stephon Diggs?
That's gonna be a
tough
fun one to watch. That is a conversation that we will discuss all throughout training camp because of where those 3 receivers are priced. All 3 of them are priced very high. I think all 3 of them are off of the board before the end of round 4 in Underdog draft. So, like,
they're all in the top 3. Because Dell is 35.6, so right at the back of the third. You have Diggs, who's mid-third at 30.2, and you have Nico Collins at 19.4, so back of the second. So back of the second, mid-third, late third. For 3 players on one team, which is just insane.
And if that were the case, then we need to be putting tickets in on CJ Stroud to win MVP if he's going to support 3 top 36 wide receivers. Yeah.
He's like second in the league right now. That's where it's like, he's second in yards. I believe he's second or third in touchdowns because Dak has the highest touchdown ceiling. Dak Prescott, low key, Ray.
High key.
Out very well.
High key.
Projects out very well.
Dallas will miss him when he's gone. Dallas will miss him when he's gone. There it is, Jay. It's a show. Damn near 90 minutes today. Went a little over for the people. Hit the music, Jay. Hit the people. Hit the music with the people. Hit the people with the music. Appreciate y'all being in the building. Gave y'all an extra time today. 90 minutes felt good. We hit the groove about the hour part. We hit the groove about the hour part. Appreciate everybody being in the chat. The conversation was so enjoyable. Gretchen, Sam, Jeff, Rico, Hunter, Joe Green. Wifey is on the plane picking up the kiddos, man. She is on the plane headed to pick up the kiddos, and she's still tapping into the show. Love you, baby. Gonna enjoy these couple hours without y'all before the chaos starts again. Jay, we got a lot of shit lined up this week on the channel, man. We got some good stuff popping, good content. We will be here next Monday, bright and early, 8 a.m. Central Time, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. JRich, anything you want to say to people before we hit the outro button?
Go Oilers, baby. Let's go. Game 7. We're here.
Oilers. Let's get it. The greatest of all time. Connor McDavid, hit the like button. We love y'all. See y'all next Monday. We out. Peace.